In the glittering city of Dubai, where power, wealth, and status reign, a forbidden romance ignites a chain of events that will shatter lives and expose deep-seated betrayal. Watch as a passionate affair spirals into tragedy, with one man dead, a marriage destroyed, and a family's reputation in tatters. This is the story of Sahiba, Zaman, and Hassan, three lives bound by love, lies, and murder. In the heart of Dubai, a city known for its soaring skyscrapers and extravagant wealth, Sahiba, Alabama Fade's life is a picture of perfection, or so it seems. At 28, she is newly married to Zaman Al-Fade, a powerful businessman who controls a chain of luxury hotels. His wealth and status have made him a figure of admiration, but behind the polished facade lies a marriage that feels increasingly hollow. Sahiba, an interior designer with an impeccable taste for all things elegant, lives in the lap of luxury. Yet, despite the riches and social standing, her life feels incomplete. The grand villa she shares with Zaman is cold, the conversations are minimal, and the passion is absent. Sahiba's heart, once full of hope, is now filled with an aching emptiness, a longing she cannot quite explain. Enter Hassan Rahman, a man from her past, a childhood friend of Zaman's. At 30, Hassan is a charming art dealer who travels in circles far removed from the business world Zaman inhabits. Hassan has always held a special place in Sahiba's heart, though their connection remained unspoken for years. Upon his return to Dubai, their paths cross once more, and the bond that once existed between them reignites. It begins innocently enough, with the nostalgia of shared childhood memories, but soon their chemistry becomes undeniable. As Sahiba's marriage drifts further into silence, she finds solace in Hassan's presence. For the first time in years, she feels seen, heard, and understood. Little do they know, this reconnection will lead to a dangerous, forbidden path that will tear their lives apart. They are on the precipice of something neither can control. But in the glittering world of Dubai, where nothing is ever quite as it seems, the boundaries of friendship and loyalty are about to blur, leading them into a world of secrets, lies, and passion that could destroy everything they hold dear. The connection between Sahiba and Hassan deepens in ways neither of them anticipated. Their once innocent meetings turn into stolen moments, filled with longing glances and whispered conversations. Sahiba, caught between the safety of her marriage and the electric pull of her feelings for Hassan, finds herself questioning everything. What began as friendship quickly evolves into an undeniable attraction. Hassan listens to her in a way Zaman never does. He sees through the facade she has built, recognizing the loneliness in her eyes. And as they spend more time together, Sahiba begins to feel a kind of freedom she never knew she craved. With Hassan, there is no judgment, no expectations, just pure connection. But with every meeting, the stakes grow higher. The stolen kisses in the quiet corners of lavish hotels become more passionate, and the stolen moments more frequent. They both know this is dangerous, that what they're doing could destroy their lives, but they can't stop. Sahiba wrestles with the guilt of betraying her husband, yet the pull of her love for Hassan is stronger than the ties that bind her to Zaman. The excitement of their affair is intoxicating, like a drug she can't quit, even as she realizes the consequences of her actions. Meanwhile, Zaman's suspicion begins to grow. He notices the small changes in Sahiba's behavior, the late nights, the distracted conversations, and her growing distance. His mind, once focused solely on his empire, begins to fixate on the one thing that he cannot control, his wife. The walls between them begin to close in, and Zaman finds himself increasingly obsessed with uncovering the truth. The seeds of betrayal have been planted, and soon they will grow into a storm that no one can avoid. Zaman, once a man in control of everything around him, begins to feel the walls closing in. He notices that Sahiba is no longer the woman he married. Her smiles seem forced, her gaze distant. She no longer seems interested in the life they've built together. At first, Zaman brushes it off as the natural course of any marriage. Life gets busy, and people change. But then he notices the little things, the sudden secrecy in Sahiba's phone, the late-night trips to places she refuses to explain, the lingering glances exchanged between her and Hassan. The truth begins to seep in slowly, like a poison filling his veins. Zaman's suspicion deepens, and he can no longer ignore the nagging feeling in his gut. He hires a private investigator to follow Sahiba, to uncover what she's hiding. The evidence comes in slowly at first, subtle hints of Sahiba's growing connection to Hassan. The investigator reports back with images of the two of them together, always in private, always in secret. Zaman's world is turned upside down. His mind races with thoughts of betrayal, of the one person he trusted more than anyone else in the world having an affair with his best friend. The anger that simmers beneath the surface of his usually composed demeanor begins to boil over. The betrayal cuts deep, first his wife, then his closest friend. The devastation he feels is overwhelming, and the thirst for revenge grows with each passing moment. Unable to contain his rage, Zaman confronts Sahiba. But her denials only fuel his anger further. He can see the truth in her eyes, the guilt that lingers in the air between them. The storm inside him is now inevitable. He feels a deep, unrelenting need to confront Hassan. A confrontation that will have dire consequences. The moment of reckoning arrives, and it is filled with fury. Zaman tracks Hassan down, his mind clouded with rage. Hassan, unaware of the storm that is coming, agrees to meet Zaman, his old friend, in the outskirts of the city. The tension between them is palpable, charged with years of unspoken emotions. Zaman confronts Hassan, his voice low and dangerous as he accuses him of destroying his life. Hassan, taken aback by the anger in Zaman's voice, tries to explain that it was never meant to hurt him, that he never wanted any of this. But Zaman is too far gone. His jealousy, hurt, and betrayal take over, clouding his judgment. In the heat of the moment, words turn into actions. The argument escalates quickly, becoming a violent confrontation. Zaman, unable to control his emotions, lashes out at Hassan. The struggle between them is intense, and before either man realizes what has happened, Hassan lies dead on the ground, his life taken in a moment of uncontrollable fury. Zaman stands over the body of his old friend, his heart racing, his breath shallow. A mix of disbelief and horror fills him. He has just killed the man he once called a friend, a man who shared in the most intimate parts of his life. The reality of his actions crashes down on him like a wave. He is no longer just a man betrayed, he is now a murderer. In a frantic panic, Zaman decides to cover up his crime. He drags Hassan's lifeless body into the desert, burying it beneath the sand in a place where no one will ever find it. The desert becomes his accomplice, a silent partner in his attempt to hide the truth. But even as he buries Hassan, Zaman knows that the truth will eventually come to light. He can't run from what he's done. The consequences of his actions will follow him, no matter how deeply he buries them. In the stillness of the desert, Zaman feels as though he is burying more than just Hassan's body. As the last shovelful of sand falls over his friend's grave, Zaman feels an emptiness that nothing can fill. He stands there, alone under the vast sky, knowing that his life has irrevocably changed. The man he was before, calm, controlled, successful, no longer exists. Instead, he is a man who has crossed a line from which there is no return. The burial is not just of Hassan, but of Zaman's past, his innocence, and the life he once had. The desert stretches endlessly before him, a silent witness to his crime. Zaman's mind is a whirlwind of emotions, fear, guilt, disbelief. He tries to convince himself that he can get away with it, that no one will ever find out. The desert is vast, and Hassan's body is buried deep. What are the chances anyone will discover the truth? But even as he buries the body, the weight of his actions presses down on him. Zaman knows he is no longer the man he once was, and no matter how much he tries to outrun his guilt, the truth will always catch up to him. The desert may be vast, but the consequences of his crime will follow him everywhere he goes. As Hassan's disappearance continues to baffle everyone, the truth remains buried beneath the hot desert sands. But in a city like Dubai, where every detail is scrutinized, things rarely stay hidden for long. The police begin their investigation into Hassan's sudden absence, and Detective Khalid Al-Mansour is assigned to the case. Khalid, a seasoned investigator with a sharp mind, quickly notices the oddities surrounding the case. The absence of any signs of struggle, the lack of any ransom demand, and the fact that no one seems to have heard or seen everything about Hassan's disappearance seems too clean. It's as if someone went to great lengths to cover their tracks. As the investigation progresses, Khalid begins to connect the dots. He learns of the complex relationship between Zaman, Hassan, and Sahiba. The police uncover footage from security cameras showing Zaman and Hassan meeting on the day of Hassan's disappearance. At first glance, it seems like a routine encounter between old friends, but the tension between them is evident. The way they interact, the coldness in Zaman's demeanor, and the unease in Hassan's eyes all suggest that something more sinister is at play. As Khalid digs deeper, he interviews witnesses who saw Zaman and Hassan together in the days leading up to Hassan's vanishing. Some mention seeing the two men arguing at a cafe, while others recall a heated conversation at Zaman's office. The mounting evidence against Zaman begins to paint a clear picture, one of betrayal, anger, and an inevitable tragedy. Khalid's instincts tell him that Zaman is hiding something, but the evidence is circumstantial. He needs more. He needs to uncover the truth, not just for the sake of justice, but to bring closure to Hassan's family, who are growing more desperate for answers by the day. Despite his best efforts to keep his crime hidden, Zaman's guilt begins to unravel him. The weight of what he's done is heavier than anything he's ever experienced before. Each time he looks at Sahiba, he is reminded of the irreversible mistake he made. She, too, is lost in her own turmoil, but Zaman knows that she suspects the truth. There's a tension in their interactions, an unspoken understanding that something is wrong. Zaman tries to distract himself with work, but his mind is never far from that desert grave. The sound of sand slipping through his fingers, the weight of Hassan's body beneath the earth, it haunts him, invading his thoughts at every turn. Sahiba, too, is struggling. The guilt of betraying her husband with Hassan weighs on her every day, but now, with Hassan gone, the enormity of her actions becomes clearer. She wonders if it was all worth it. She wonders if she would have done things differently had she known how things would end. But the question of what happened to Hassan is one that looms over her. She can't shake the nagging feeling that Zaman knows more than he's letting on. And as the investigation inches closer to Zaman, she becomes more desperate to understand what really happened. Zaman's emotional turmoil reaches a breaking point. He can't escape the memory of that night, the argument with Hassan, the moment his rage took over, and the cold finality of Hassan's death. In a moment of weakness, he admits to himself what he's done. The guilt gnaws at him, yet he believes he can't undo it. The more he tries to bury his feelings, the more they resurface, threatening to expose everything. As the investigation intensifies, the walls close in on Zaman. Detective Khalid uncovers the final piece of the puzzle when a new witness comes forward, an employee at one of Zaman's hotels, who claims to have seen Zaman and Hassan arguing late one evening, just days before Hassan's disappearance. The witness overheard part of their conversation, and while the details are vague, it's enough to cast further suspicion on Zaman. The witness recalls hearing Zaman's voice raise in anger, followed by the sound of a struggle. This detail is enough to convince Khalid that the situation was far from ordinary. At this point, the evidence against Zaman is undeniable. Khalid brings Zaman in for questioning, and the tension in the air is thick with anticipation. Zaman, however, continues to deny any involvement in Hassan's disappearance. His cold and calculated demeanor betrays nothing. But beneath the surface, cracks begin to show. The more Khalid presses him, the more defensive Zaman becomes, and his answers begin to falter. It's only when Khalid confronts him with the security footage and the witness testimony that Zaman finally breaks. The floodgates open, and in a moment of uncontrollable emotion, Zaman confesses to the murder of his old friend Hassan. The confession sends shockwaves through the investigation team, but it's not just Zaman's admission that leaves people speechless. He reveals the extent of the emotional betrayal he felt, how the affair between Sahiba and Hassan shattered him, how the sense of losing everything pushed him over the edge. Zaman's confession is a complex one, full of rage, guilt, and heartbreak. But it is also the first step toward justice, the first sign that the truth will finally be brought to light. Zaman's trial becomes one of the most high-profile cases in Dubai's recent history. The wealthy Al Fayed family, once known for their prestige and influence, is now under the microscope of public scrutiny. The media's relentless coverage of the trial fuels the scandal, and Sahiba, who once enjoyed the privileges of being married to Zaman, is now thrust into the harsh glare of the public eye. Her once perfect life has unraveled completely, and she faces the shame of being linked to not one, but two lives destroyed by her actions. The courtroom drama is tense, as the prosecution presents the damning evidence against Zaman. The security footage, the witness testimonies, Zaman's own confession, it all points to one horrifying truth: Zaman killed his best friend in a fit of rage, driven by jealousy and betrayal. The defense tries to argue that Zaman was provoked, that his actions were an impulsive result of the emotional turmoil he was experiencing. But the public is unforgiving. The details of the affair between Sahiba and Hassan are laid bare for all to see, and the media hounds her at every opportunity. Sahiba is left to grapple with the fallout of her decisions, not just the affair, but the consequences that followed. Zaman is found guilty of premeditated murder and sentenced to life imprisonment. His once thriving empire begins to crumble as the scandal grows. Sahiba, who had hoped to move on from the past, now finds herself publicly humiliated, her marriage to Zaman dissolved in a matter of weeks. The fall from grace is swift and unforgiving. But the worst part, perhaps, is the realization that she has lost everything: not just her marriage, but her dignity, her reputation, and the love she once had. The trial is over, but the repercussions of the events that unfolded in the Al Fayed family are far from finished. Zaman's life in prison is one of constant reflection, a life spent grappling with his actions, with the loss of his freedom, and with the deep sense of regret that now consumes him. He is a man who destroyed his own life out of jealousy and anger, and he knows that he can never undo the damage. Sahiba, on the other hand, is left to rebuild her life from the ashes of the scandal. She moves away from Dubai, trying to escape the ghosts of her past, but the damage has already been done. Her reputation is tarnished beyond repair, and though she attempts to start over, she knows that she will never escape the shadow of her former life. Her affair with Hassan, the murder, the trial, these events will define her forever. As the story comes to a close, we are left to reflect on the devastating power of love, jealousy, and betrayal. The Alabama Fayed family, once seen as untouchable, is now broken beyond repair. The consequences of their choices have reshaped their lives, and no amount of wealth or status can undo the damage done. The story serves as a stark reminder of how fragile the things we hold dear truly are, and how easily they can be destroyed by the actions of one moment. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to my channel for more intense stories. Stay tuned for the next chapter.